it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets, and welcome to card number 17 in the Countdown to Christmas card series for 2020. Here's the card that we're going to be making today using no line watercoloring. The stamp set I used is from Honeybee Stamps called Little Pickup, and I'm going to be inking it up with some Distress ink in antique linen. You'll see me ink it up actually in Distress Oxide, but that was the wrong one. I wiped it off and I actually cut that part out. But I did use Distress ink for the stamping of the images. That's the only thing I used Distress ink for. I used Distress Oxide for the rest. And now I'm putting the tree in the back of the pickup and doing the same thing as inking it up in antique linen. And then we're going to be taking a old stamp from Inkadinakdoo. There is no name on it. I showed you that in the beginning. I actually pulled it off of the stamp block. Now what I did was I put some Zig two-way glue on the back of it, let that dry a little bit, and now I'm going to be using the antique linen to ink this up. And because I didn't put the padding on there, I can keep the black foam pad in there. Now if the padding had come off, I would have taken the black padding out of the Misty and then just used that. So this, you are going to be able to see this. I stamped it a couple of times because I wanted to be able to see it because I'm really not good at no line coloring, watercoloring, and I wanted to be able to see the image pretty well. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some Distress Oxide, and this one is Iced Spruce, and I'm going to start working on the tree. Just going over some of the branches. Now this is a grayish green, and I forgot about that. I always forget that Iced Spruce is more of a gray than a green. So I just kind of put that base color down, but you're not really going to see any of this color in the end. But that's fine because Distress Oxides layer very nicely, and it was good to get just a base color down, and it actually acts almost like shading at the bottom, kind of like when you use gray Copic markers and then color another color over top of it. It just gives it a little bit of shading. So this next one that we're going to use, I believe this one is Evergreen Bough, and we're going to go over most of those lines. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I'm leaving all of the coloring in so you see the whole process. If you do want to skip ahead and you don't want to see the coloring, that's fine. You can go to the end. I just wanted to leave everything in there because there are a couple little tips that I picked up along the way that I think you might be interested in. So the first thing was that when you stamp these images out in the Distress ink, you probably should only do it once and not do it more than that, because I think I got a little bit too much color. But the good part about that was some of the leaves were brown and I actually didn't really need to paint them. So you'll see that in the as we go along. So now I put down some pine needles, Distress Oxide, and I'm going over it. Because I stamped this tree a couple of times, it looks like it has the branches underneath it, or it has a little bit of that brown in there still, so it kind of looks like the trunk of the tree is on there too, and you can see like the branches and not just the leaves. So it actually worked out to my benefit for the most part in all of these. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to color in this big tree. Now I have the stamp up off screen, but so where I can see it, so I can see the pieces of the image. Now this is supposed to be a tree that is covered in snow, so there's only very little bit of the green that would be showing through. So I'm trying to mimic that here, and it was easier to do because you could really see the lines. Traditionally, when you do no line coloring, you probably wouldn't have this much. You probably wouldn't have stamped it a couple times like I did. But again, I'm still practicing at this. This actually does come out a lot better than I thought it would. But as I was going through, I'm like, oh, it looks terrible. So that's my second tip. It's going to look terrible before it looks good. So as you're layering colors on and as you're doing things, don't panic, don't throw it away. You can fix it, because you'll see when I do the truck, there are some things that I did that were very wrong, but I could fix them. So watercolor is, when you watercolor with Distress Oxides at least, it is pretty forgiving. So give yourself a little bit of grace. If you color something the wrong color, It's not the end of the world. You can put a different color over top of it. You can add a little bit of water and dab that off to take some of the color away. You know, this was just me practicing, and again, I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out. But it is a lot of trial and error. You know, shaping the trees in the back. These ones, I kind of felt like I was like Bob Ross, put the happy little trees in there when I was doing this. But it turned out it was a lot more fun. Obviously, I've sped this up quite a bit. I've sped this up 2 times. For some reason, my editing software only lets me speed it up twice the regular speed. I probably would have sped it up more than that so that it wasn't super long. But I hope that you guys enjoy this process. This was, again, a newer technique for me. I've done it a couple times, but this was probably my favorite one that I've done so far. So again, I'm just referencing back the block, and the block, it doesn't have any color on it. It's just, it almost looks like an antique postcard. That's kind of how it looked on there if you saw that. So it's just all in brown. So now here I am taking, this is gathered twigs, I believe, and I am just using my brush to kind of go over the images, but because they were done in antique linen, this is just going to give it a little bit more definition, but you're going to be able to see the antique linen underneath of it. So again, I'm just going over some of the branches with my brush, adding a couple things in there that didn't even, that, you know, weren't really there, but just adding a little bit more texture and a little bit more depth and dimension to the picture. So originally I was going to have the truck kind of overlap and kind of look like it was parked up near the house, but then I wanted it to look like it was, I actually didn't want to do any masking. I was a little bit lazy, so I decided to move the truck down kind of like it's on a snowy road, and then the house, the log cabin, is set back a little bit further. Okay, so now that color, so we did gather twigs, so I'm just, Walnut Stain, that's what it was. So I went back in with a little bit of Walnut Stain on the cabin. So sorry, you can't really see because my hand's in the way, but I'm going over the lines. I'm adding a couple lines because it didn't look like it connected. I don't know whether it didn't stamp or what, but I'm going over the lines like where the logs would meet to make them look dark. And then I'll go in with a little bit of that gathered twig and color it in, because so I think it ended up looking pretty good. Put logs on the side of the chimney because there were no lines there. Just going back in with that gathered twig and kind of giving it a little bit of color, doing a little bit of shading and you know, just to make it not look stark white, and then going over a little bit of the ground kind of to make it look like maybe there was a little bit of dirt there. And now we are going to be using the 2 greens again, which are Evergreen Bough and Pine Needles, and we're going to go over some of the trees. We're going to just fill in a little bit more of that area because I wasn't really sure how much I actually wanted to color in and how much I wanted to put snow on there, because again, at this point, I wasn't really sure how I was going to put the snow on there. And then again, I'm just being like Bob Ross and adding a couple of little trees in there, which aren't in the initial video or in the initial video, in the initial, the actual stamp, and kind of making some of the trees a little bit fuller. So I just wanted to add a little bit more to the scene because I thought there was a little bit of sparseness to it. But I think that it looks really pretty. I really like this stamped image. Now we're going to start working on the truck. So this is black soot, and I am going around the edge of the tire and outlining it. So there are some shadows and a little bit of shading on this wheel, but I wanted to go around the outside. I wanted to do some of the lines that are in that, and then go back in with a more watered down version of black soot and go in and color it in to make it almost look gray. So I'll do that with this one, but you can still see the lines on there. I think the lines are actually from that antique linen and not really from the black soot, which is pretty cool. I kind of got lucky with the way that I double stamped these, because you can see the antique linen kind of makes that pop through the black soot, if that kind of makes any sense. Like you can kind of still tell there's lines there. Again, just really trying my hand at this, no line watercoloring. There are so many people that are so much better at it than me, but if you're new to it, I don't know that I would say follow what I did, but it helped me to stamp them more than once. And then you see I added the door handle on there, and then I'm adding more water to make it a little bit more of a gray color. And I'm going back in with some of the areas that would be white and adding a little bit of shadow, because even if something is white, there will always be a little bit of shading to it. Plus, if snow is anything like it is around here, like after day 1, it gets that like slushy gray. So I also wanted to put a little bit of that in there. I didn't want it to be ugly snow, but I did want to have a little bit of shading. So I'm going in with the tree. This part is unnecessary for the tree because you'll see what I do in a little bit. Now we are going to start to work on the truck. So I'm going in with some Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide to color in the window and the windshield on the truck. And normally when you watercolor, you shouldn't watercolor 2 sections next to each other that that you shouldn't watercolor right next to each other. Like when one section is still wet, don't go right next to it. So I tried to do the same thing with this. Now I am using, this one would be Salty Ocean, and I put a little bit too much on, and you'll see in a little bit how I fix this. But these are the bumper parts of the car. I guess the part that goes over the tire. I don't know what parts of cars are. I'm terrible at this kind of stuff. But this was definitely too dark. I like to color, but when I put the body of the car on the truck on, when I colored that in, this didn't really look right, and you'll see how I fix it. But just adding a little bit of color. I probably should have watered this down, kind of just going over and outlining the parts so that you can see everything. And then I go back in and I think I color the wheel well with that. And then this one is, trying to think what color this one would be. So if that was Salty Ocean, oh my goodness, I don't think that I wrote that one down. Oh, Broken China. This is Broken China. I have a list of all my Distress Oxides I use because I use so many. So now you can see here the major difference between the Broken China and the Salty Ocean, and it's way too much. Outlining the door so that you can see go around there, and then start bringing in a lighter color so the door has the edges of the door are darker, so it's kind of more defined. So I realized that Salty Ocean is too dark. So I start to come in with the Broken China and go over it and see if that'll work. Doesn't really. I add a little bit more to add a little bit of Salty Ocean to the Broken China to add a little bit of shading to like the back door of the cab. That looks like it's just like a single door. And then the back part of the truck, the bed of the truck. And I was trying to figure out what to do because I still really, really do not like the way the Salty Ocean looks on the piece that goes over the tire, the hub maybe? Not the hubcap, but I don't know. Whatever that piece is there that's too dark, that you can clearly tell is too dark. So I was going trying to keep it in mind. And I know that I said to you guys, it's going to look bad before it looks good. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It really looked bad before it looked better. It does look good in the end, I promise. So we're going to go over everything again with a little bit more of that Broken China. I'm trying to do this, and yeah, it's not really working. It's lightening up at a teeny tiny bit, but my paper is starting to pill, and I don't want that. You'll see later on that my paper definitely pills at another point. So I took a little bit of that and I took a paper towel and dabbed off the that part of the truck, and it makes it look so much better. So I added a little bit of water to the brush and then kind of dabbed it off. Now I'm taking a pencil. It's a Halloween pencil that I had to have because I had them for the girls, and that's the only pencils I have in the house. I bought a pack of pencils for the girls for Halloween, and that was the only thing that I could find in the craft room. So now we are getting ready to draw in the sky. Ignore that second line that I do. I end up not doing anything with it. Now I'm taking a different brush, a thicker brush, and I have no idea. I'm not good with watercolors or anything like that. I have no idea what color or what kind of brush that is, but I am taking Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide and just putting it on the top. I wanted like a kind of like a dusk looking sky, so I went for my traditional colors of Seedless Preserves, Chipped Sapphire, and Blueprint Sketch. And here is on the left side of the paper, you'll see in a minute or two that my paper starts to pill. I guess I put too much water on it. This is Canson XL watercolor paper. Very inexpensive watercolor paper, and that's probably why. I probably put too much water on it. I did go in the beginning with the chipped sapphire, or sorry, this is Blueprint Sketch, and I went in and I was too heavy of a hand on it and didn't have enough water on it, and so it's really dark, but that's kind of where it meets the snow, so I was okay with it. Now I'm going to come in with some chipped sapphire and I'm going to spray the paper down, and this is where I think I went wrong. I shouldn't have sprayed the paper because the chipped sapphire was too light, and then you see all those little pill marks. Again, I found a way around it, found a way to kind of get rid of most of them or let them blend in. So now I'm just going back over with all of Chipped Sapphire because that's the light, that right now that's the lightest color because I've toned it down with too much water, but you can see all the pills that I'm pulling up. Again, I'll fix it. This is kind of my process, is I do something, I feel like I ruin the card, I try to fix it, and in the end, it generally comes out okay, but as you're going through, it doesn't look good. So hang with me, it will look good in the end, and I hope that you guys are still with me. I know this is a very, very long video, but I wanted to show you guys, the whole process and how I messed up, but continued to go with it and fix it. So again, we're just going back and adding color. You can see that what color is that? The Blueprint Sketch at the bottom, there's a lot of that, or it's the darkest there. Again, that's where it meets the snow, so that kind of would be okay because there kind of would be a little bit of a shadow there. And I know some of this is off camera, I apologize. I was just trying to get in next to the trees and get everything, get all the sky taken care of and go make sure the sky went all the way down to where it's going to meet the snow. So just going to go back and forth over top of it, and I kept doing that and it kept pilling, and that was wrong. So I did kind of wipe it off with a paper towel, and you can still see some pilling. So now this is a white bottle that I got from Michael's. It was in, I believe, a 3-pack. There was like a teal, a pink, and this white. And I thought this would make really nice snow for on the tree. I'm going to use something else for the snow on the road, but it would have been too hard to try to put this on the trees. So I thought this would be nice. Now, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have put a little bit of maybe some glitter in it so it kind of sparkled a little bit, but I'm just going and adding snow to all of the trees. Even the ones in the picture that don't have snow on it, they would all have snow. Make sure you add snow to the roof, and then I got a glob there, and I'm just taking my paintbrush and wiping it off. So, and then just dabbing a little bit of snow down and just making it uneven on the roof and putting a little bit at the bottom. Just spreading that little snow around a little bit. I wasn't sure if this is the snow that I was going to do at the bottom, and because I found my snow writer and I forgot when I started the video, I accidentally knocked it off my desk, and I'm like, where is it? I couldn't find it anywhere, and it took me a while to find it, so I wasn't sure. So here it is. I tried to use it as an actual snow writer, but something happened, and I think that the snow writer wasn't coming out right. So I'm actually taking a spatula and just pulling it out of the bottle and using it almost like a paste and putting it on. So it was easy to do in the more open areas. As it gets closer to the truck, it got a little bit more difficult to do. But this stuff is really, really cool. It gives a great texture. It does take a little while to dry. It said it was going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. It didn't take that long because I didn't put a really thick coat of it on, but it did take a little while for it to dry. And it was actually when I did glue the card together, it was still a little tacky, but that's why you'll see I put the ATG down on the card base and not onto the back of this. So again, I'm just going to use my spatula to move the snow around to make sure that all of it's covered. And I wanted, initially I thought this was going to be like a road, and I was just going to put a little bit of snow around, but I guess this kind of could be like the truck is sitting in the driveway, even though the cabin is a little far away. You can make up your own little story as to what's going on. I had a vision in my head, and it kind of sort of came out the way that I wanted it to, but I really didn't know how I was going to do the snow. So this stuff is pretty cool. This snow writer. I know there's a snow marker, and I have one somewhere. I also have one that is coming in the Create and Inkspire kit, which will be here on Monday. I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to use that. I will definitely use it in one of my videos for this card series. Can't find it. I don't know what the heck I did with it, because that was actually my plan. I was actually going to use the snow marker here. Oh, and before I forget, I used Fossilized Amber on that little light on the front of the truck. I was just looking at that now as I was going around it. So that was the last color of Distress Oxide that I used. I will put all of the colors down in the more information section because there were a lot of them that I used. I have my list here. So again, just going around the whole entire truck. This was such a fun process. I really like the way this came out. I really am not great at watercoloring, so I didn't know how this whole process was going to go, but I'm very, very happy with the way this card turned out. I know that there are other people that can do a better job at no-line watercoloring, but I'm pretty happy with it. For my level of ability, I'm very happy with it. So just adding a little bit of snow up by the cabin itself. I actually used two different spatulas. You just saw the one that was in my left hand and then the one that I'm using right now to put all of the snow on there. It's almost like icing. It's actually a pretty cool texture. So just adding, going back in, smoothing everything out, making sure that it's okay. This paper did get super warped. And when I glue it on, you'll see in a minute that by the big tree, it does get a little bit warped. Now I'm just taking my Signo ball pen, something like that, and just putting white dots all around to make it look like it was snowing. The sky was snowing. So you could definitely leave this step out. I just thought that the sky looked a little bit plain. I could have added a sentiment to it, but I decided not to. I decided to only add it to the inside. I wanted the front to just look, just the scene. That was all I wanted it to be, was just the scene. Now we're going to be using a sentiment from the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit. And this one was from last maybe October or November. There's no place like home for the holidays. And I used MFT Sweet Tooth Pigment ink to stamp that down. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit because pigment ink does take a little bit longer to dry, but I love the way that white looks on that black card base. And by the way, the card base is 5x7 and I'm using my ATG to glue the front on. That is 1/4 inch smaller than the 5x7 card, and you can see that it's a little bit wet there, and around the tree there's a bubble. But that's it. That is the card. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below and I will answer them. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you guys. And I will see you again real soon for the next video.